just had an interesting thought, which is that the other day I had a different thought, which has the premise of we start from the wrong spot. The first thought was, we think I am me, but I am not me because me is alive, and life has been developing for hundreds of thousands of years, millions of years, and so, but basically what you are is the essence of what life is, expressing itself in this moment, however the situation requires. And that's pretty cool, but it's fundamentally different when you operate from that perspective than operating as Jacob or whatever your name may be. And so I just think that's interesting. And the second thought that I just now had, which is that we start from the wrong place. We have this abstraction of good and bad, good and evil, and that's reinforced everywhere. But when you really think about it, what is good and evil? It's really an extraction of predator versus prey. And that is the same thing experientially, but it's very, very different because it's it's a point of view, right? If you're predator, then that is prey. But if you're prey, then that is predator. And very different situation, but it's not good and bad, because when you realize that every predator is a prey and every prey is a predator, that is how the food network works, the food web works. And so you started the easiest way to annihilate the whole thing is just by showing that everything there's a photon, goes from the sun, it's absorbed by and turned into a plant, and the plant is eaten by a bunch of insects, and the insects are eaten by an anteater, and then the anteater is eaten by a big cat, and then a cat is eaten by a so and so and so, and that's how that works. One time, one of my coworkers, his name is Kurt. I love him to death. One time, I saw a cricket near one of my door sets, basically as the bell rang for us to go. And someone was like, "Oh, my little cricket friend." And so I brought him, and then I showed him to other people, and they thought I was crazy. And so the next day, Kurt comes into my door, and he basically says, "What if you turned out that as you let that," because I let it go at the end of the day, I didn't keep it or bring it home or anything. And he's like, "What if it turned out that a spider came and ate it?" And my response was, I would have realized that it was not me who was freeing the cricket, but who was feeding the spider. And if you look at it from that perspective, it absolutely changes it. And so back to the original thing, predator versus prey is not good versus evil, and it's a lot easier to see. It's a social dynamic. It is a matter of perspective. It is a matter of point of view. It exists in the mind. It doesn't exist. It does exist in objective reality. There's cat and there's mouse. But it's not good and bad, where bad is objectively bad. And that does exist, I think. That was the Jordan Peterson in me. I've been listening to a lot of him. I do think that evil exists now, but it's an abstraction originally of something such as predator versus prey, because evil is an objective archetype. It's now I've just got the critic in my mind. He's like, I know where you got that, and where you got that, and where you got... All of my thoughts are just compilations of other people's thoughts, and that's the point, because fuck thoughts. Why am I going to have my own thoughts? And when I originally had that realization, all my thoughts were about video games and stress and being an individual, and now my consciousness is fundamentally shifted to, okay, I was born, I'm going to die, I lived this short lifetime, after the rest of this, it's eternity, and so what am I going to do? And so the answer comes, and so you can't just, there's no point in thinking about, what do I want? Like, no. And so what I did is I took my brain and I Ram Dass, Alan Watts, Terrence McKenna, all like just for a very, very, very long time, and it's working. It's really working. Okay, one of the things I realized is that I'm not enlightened by any means, and it surprises me that I know so much. And what I realize is because I'm shifting. I drew this picture a while ago where it literally is called Watching the Self Wake Up, and you know that because it's written in big letters. And then there's a guy meditating, and there's mountains. Beautiful. Anyway, so I'm in this position of watching the self wake up, and one of the things I realized is that I'm listening to people speak. Specifically, there's this guy I found. I need to know his name. I need to find out his name. He's freaking amazing. I literally just found out about him 2 days ago, but I've been thinking about synchronicity. I'm straying from the original thought. Can't. So, there's the guy, and I'll listen to situations like it's the archetypal, the guru, the student comes to the guru, and I was in that position. I was like, how do I overcome this problem that has to do with myself? And then Muji came along, and love him so much. And that was the original one for me, where he was like, okay, so you're having who is this I? And then watch from where the right, and that whole thing. And if you don't know it, Muji, I love him so much. But anyway, I could never see the other point of the view, and there would be points in the video, in the lectures and the things where people would be laughing in the background because the person's not getting it, and everyone else gets it, and the person knows that he should be, and it's like, it's not pressure so much, it's like this comedy, like I can't get the joke, and so there's that. But now I'm on the other side. I'm like, the guy's bringing the problem, and my mind's already like, you're structuring it all wrong. It's a and then the guru will be like, you're structuring it wrong. It's like, and so this crazy thing, and so what I've realized is happening is that so me and my friends, we used to do this thing where we would talk like baby speech, like the fundamental essence of language. Say as many words as you possibly can. Am hungry. Boom. Like stuff like that. And you start from there, and then and then from there, as you develop complex sentences, you realize that this is what your brain is doing regardless. And so, as the way complex, you have a statement, am hungry. Well, I am hungry. And so that is self-awareness. And then so the more words that you add to a sentence, the more meaning it has, the more it really reflects how your brain works. And it's really cool. Like how you structure sentences really reflects how you view reality. And because fundamentally what your brain is doing is it's seeing something, it's getting the raw sensory input, it's filtering through that sensory input, and then it's putting it in a category. And it's so interesting. How did I get here? I'm talking about how the brain works. Language. So you view the thing, and then you come up with a word. You have the basic sentence, like the am hungry, and then you develop that. That's what your brain is doing as you speak. But usually it's happening at the rate at which you speak. That's exactly how it happens. You can watch it happen. It's beautiful. And so what I'm realizing is by listening to these people who had right view, and like the escalation for me was Terrence McKenna, Alan Watts, Ram Dass, Muji, Taknakan, and then I think this new guy. I don't know, but he seems pretty legit. And so, and then there were branches like. Obviously, I've laid out the journey somewhere else, probably, definitely. That is what I do. I track my progress as a human being so that I can share it with other human beings. So that I can identify themselves in a past version of me, they can see the path out, or at least a path out. And they could be like, I don't really like Jesus. I want to, and okay. Because I like being self-aware that Christian is Christian at this point. Like I originally heard it from, it's mind blowing, man. Watching just the perspective change is so strange. But like sometimes I hear Christian music through the lens of Christian music, and like that gives you a window into how the whole thing is viewed from the outside. And I remember when I thought like that. And so then I developed a real sincere love of Jesus. Like specifically for me, it was love your enemies. It, like that, I read that passage and I was like, that thought came from my heart. I said that. And then he said that. But he lived 2,000 years ago. And so that is where the real, and then understanding God as the I am. And this is what I like doing. But I do it very badly. Because what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to essentially talk to my past self. Talk to people who... Originally, when I started, I wanted to be the guy who wasn't really super into religion, but like I could give you like the rundown of basically everything. And I still have that in me, although like I am definitely the religious nut. And so yeah, everything's been crazy. I had this idea earlier. I tried to discuss as a YouTube video, but then I got distracted too many times because I loved my brain, but it's a thing. Anyway, the idea is, what if you had an atomic structure the size of a cell, like an atomic system that you could either remotely control or directly put consciousness into the atomic system. This would be done technologically. And then one of the branches was, I feel like that's one of the meanings of human life in general, because before enlightenment, you chop wood and you carry water. Like you bring water, it's a village analogy. And then after you're enlightened, you chop wood and you carry water. But there's this perspective shift. You're doing it from a different point of view. You are not the ego, you are the God, the self, the source, and so there is that. And so I feel like the reason human, and I think Terence McKenna sides with this in a different way, but it's the same basic concept of how our purpose is, like, we are essentially to develop technology and ideas and complexity, and we are supposed to develop things. We're supposed to develop the intellect, right? And then, but the way I see it is it's from Tao to intellect, back to Tao with the intellect, and then from that emergent point of view, and then it's a process. I see it between the sixth chakra and the seventh chakra. It just goes from source to third eye, well, like to the being, to the soul, to the whatever, and or to the heart, or to really all of the chakra, because you are an individual being of each chakra, I believe. Anyway, I'm sorry, I just went into chakras. Anyway, so the original idea is, what if you could have an atomic structure, right? And because this is kind of what cells are, because the next thing is, it's an atomic structure that's roughly the size of a cell. And so what it would really be is an entire complex city, the orchestrated thing. Like it would be super complex, because imagine how much complexity you could fit, because if you look at the distance between like the size of an atom and the size of a cell, there's a lot of atoms in a cell. Like there's a whole fractal layer in between, because you have atoms, which and then atomic structures, which is the baseline for biology. And biology, like that's and so it is essentially what nature has done. But I am saying, no, it is what nature has done. But what I'm saying is doing that with intention. Now we've gone from single-celled organisms to super complex organisms, and then you create, from that perspective, another singular-celled organism. And number one, that could give us, but the internal experience, and it would be an entire structure of atoms. It wouldn't just be an organism. It would be an organism in and of itself. But then from that, we would also control the entire internal, where it would be organism made of entire city-like structures of information processing, computers, I guess. One of the things I was trying to figure out would be the application of this technology. But the real big kicker of the entire idea is, what if we had these cell-sized atomic structures, and they were powered by a Dyson sphere, which, if you don't know what a Dyson sphere is, it's basically you wrap a sphere around a star, and so you harness 100% of its energy. That's my current understanding, at least. I haven't been into that specific avenue in a long time, so that couldn't be entirely that might not be entirely accurate. But that is the basic understanding. And what if you plugged an entire star's worth of energy in that, and so you had this atomic-sized city with that amount of energy available to it? Number one, how would that be possible? But you could have something that fed it in, like at the exact rate to where, because I imagine that it would completely explode if you it would do something crazy if you downloaded a star into an atom, basically. Like, if that as a basic concept, obviously you would have something. But I'm saying you feed that energy in. So how, number one, the question is, how long would that be sustained? Because that would be a long time. Like, probably past the heat death of the universe. Because if you had a sustainable way, and now I don't understand how energy transfer or electricity or just the forces of the universe, I don't understand how they work yet. But I don't. And so I don't know how this would work. But essentially, like, what if you could store that energy somehow, and then, I don't know, maybe that's one of the things you could figure out in the tiny little micro-universe, because it would have to sustain itself. And so that would be inside of the things. It would be one of the main problems to solve. You would have to figure out how to sustain the city and how it would work, and that would include how it could exist in an external environment. I was having this other idea, which is about, I love how ideas come together like this. It's the most beautiful thing. But it's like, okay, so things exist, and then I was listening to Terrence McKenna when I heard this, so it was, when I was thinking about this, and the new guy that I was talking about, I will definitely reveal his name, probably in the description. But, I was having this idea while I was listening to, like, those two people back and forth. And so it's heavily influenced by other people, by those two people specifically. I'm trying to give them credit. And so essentially things exist in this state archetypally outside of time, right? They're not subject to anything. It's, they're just, before they are manifest, they are in essence. And before they are essence, they emerge out of the what is. And so I kind of see this as this process where what is manifests as an essence of something, and that essence of something is the raw archetype, the basic idea of the seed of the plant, essentially. And then that unfolds, and the way it unfolds, it takes on karma, because karma is action that implies action. So if you have any system, which, let me stop, define a crystal in my mind, which is there's this universe that I'm building, which is pretty cool. It's based around Dharma bots. You'll probably hear me talk about it a bunch. But a crystal in this universe is condensed information. So, like, let's say any moment, really. You have a moment, you could have a lifetime, you could have a universe, you could have it, like, any bit of self-contained information, which self-contained information is basically like a thought loop. You have, or the best example that I think everyone would understand is you have a seed, which turns into a plant, which grows a fruit, which has a seed, which grows into a plant, which grows in a fruit, which grows a seed, which grows a plant, which grows a fruit, which grows a seed. And so that is a self-contained bit of information. And so that could be condensed in this theoretical thing into a crystal. And so that crystal How is that applicable? Crystal is self-contained information. So I was defining a term. It's so hard to find my way back sometimes because I really want to get back to what I was originally talking about because I know it was an unfinished thought. Man. What was I even talking about in general? The karma one. Okay, yeah, so karma, it goes from the what is, and then it manifests as an essence. And then as the essence is like that crystal. And so as it manifests, it unfolds like a lotus flower. Om mani padme hum. The universe is... no, I can't get loud. Okay, the universe is beautifully unfolding from the... like a lotus flower inside your heart. Beautiful as a jewel. Something like that. Because it's heart... It's heart, lotus, jewel, universe. Universe, jewel, lotus, heart. I'm so lost right now. No, I'm not. I'm not lost. I'm supposed to be somewhere else. And so, anyway, so the crystal, the thing, it unfolds, and so that takes on karma. And so when it takes on karma, it's subject to time. Because what is karma? It's action that implies further action. It's action that leaves a samskara. And action, two actions, two moments, or one action, several moments, whatever. So, and a moment, and time is the space between moments. Time is the distance between two events, and like that. And so, as it manifests, it takes on karma and then subjects itself to time, and then that as that happens, it appears in space. It appears in space. And that is somewhere, and usually that has, it's because of causality. It was brought there for a reason, right? So you have an archetype. Let's say the best one is for me is playing eights. And you're trying to play as in tune with the metronome as possible. And so whatever. And so that as its own, it's an archetype. It exists in and of itself. And so the drummer is measuring itself because the archetypal thing is playing exactly eighth notes in tune with the metronome, with no variation. And so that exists in and of itself. That's the archetype. But then as it manifests, it's called to existence. It needs to manifest because a drummer is playing eights. They're trying to get, and so they might be da 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 da. I can't play out of time and then play in time while simultaneously. I haven't drummed in a while. I need to get back to that. I am getting back to that. Woo! Anyway, so It's brought into being. Space, it goes karma, time, space. And then there is, and the thing, not self-destruct, but like that is how things happen. Because how does eights happen? And that is measured against. And like, what is that measured against? That is measured against the essence of what eights is. And that is... And so when it exists on a world, when it becomes an action, right? Because when you are playing eights, you are subject to chaos. You're subject to change. You're subject to your own mind. You are subject to all of these other things that have become manifest on this plane of existence. And so... chaos emerges, and then I feel like part of and this goes back to the thing a long time ago, the purpose of human life. It's because chaos, because so many things manifest that chaos emerges, And then one of the purposes of human life is to take that chaos, and because as entropy increases, which is a universal law, which, yes, I'm still on track because of that. But as entropy increases, what's the word? Not complexity. Terence McKinney uses a word. What does he say? Novelty. Yay! Novelty increases. So that is the purpose of biology, right? Because the universe as a whole, what it does is entropy increases, right? So everything, because so many things manifest, they're subject to each other because they're on this plane of existence together. And so because of that, they're subject to error. They're impurities. They are to things that are supposed to be outside of that archetypal system, right? But they're not outside of it because that archetypal system has been manifested. And so there emerges this chaos, this chaotic property, the dragon of chaos, the just sea of chaos, the waters before God said, "Let there be light." Just that. And the purpose of biology is it has the exact opposite thing, where it takes entropy and it turns it into novelty. It makes these complex systems. And that is one of the fundamental purposes I can see of human life. And this is why our society is fucked up, because we're not thinking like this. We think like, man, what sounds good to watch, man? I can't find nothing, man. I watch everything on Netflix, man. Man, I need to go to McDonald's. Oh, shit, Taco Bell had a new thing. Yeah, let's go. And there's nothing wrong with that. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that. But this is why I believe that we are where we are as a species. Because we have... It's uncontrolled, right? If we could have that in isolated environments, that would be absolutely perfect. But also then you have the problem of segregation. Everything gets really complex really fast. So please forgive me for anything. But if we could have that, like there was a process to where, okay, like these types of people no, not these types of people. People decide for themselves. What type of life do you want to have? Because someone like me, I don't want to live in I don't want a normal life. That literally sounds like hell to me. That is the definition of samsara for me. Having a normal life, and I already have one, but I enjoy it because I see it as dharma, and that is completely different. But it's the same thing, and that's beautiful. But I don't want a normal life. But that doesn't mean that other people can't have a normal life. Because other people do want a normal life. And there's nothing wrong with that. And I went wrong with that in the past. I used to think that everyone who was having a normal life was holding back the species, fundamentally. I didn't know that's what I was thinking, but essentially that's what I was thinking. That's not true. But we need to have a system of breeding people like me, and we probably do. But we do it wrong. Because it's not organized. We don't talk about it. It's taboo. Because we are scared. Okay, what I see happening is that we are scared of things like Brave New World. If you haven't read Brave New World, it's one of my favorite books. You should definitely read it. It's by a guy named Aldous Huxley. It's basically thank you. My social Mr. Walter, man, my English teacher from 7th and 8th grade. He absolutely changed my life and then vanished from out of existence. I love him so much. To this day, I want to talk to him. But he introduced me to this book, and Aldous Huxley. It basically talks about this society where everything is absolutely manufactured and processed, and even to the point where people are born inside of a little tube, and then they're socially conditioned via every night they listen to basically the rules, and it's so crazy, man. And I'm not gonna lie, my first read through, I thought it was a utopian novel. I was like, this is perfect, we should do that, because and there are people like me, but I understand that not everyone is like me. But even though that you are not, that that others are not like me, we are still the same. We are still the same being. We are the same. But I happen to be like this, and you happen to be like this. And this is the dance of life. This is the purpose of life. That is the whole entropy into novelty thing. That is the conversion, because then what we have is, since we are both people, we can run off in these far out directions and then get to the absolute limit of whatever we want to. And then we can look back at the space we've covered and we're like, what the fuck? And then, like, let's say we're friends. And so we like each other. We go back and so it's this like, and so it's the dance where friends do this thing where they go apart and then they come back together. And then usually what happens, if certain elements are involved, is they end up experiencing the same thing that the other person experienced and coming back to the same point. And so what you get is like this full circle image where I run as far as I can this direction, and then that brings me back to the start. It's the whole seed thing. It's the whole seed grows a plant which produces a fruit which has a seed, which grows a plant, which produces a fruit, which has a seed, which grows a plant, which produces a fruit, which has a seed, and on and on and on. And so that is one of the fundamental ways that that entropy and complexity and chaos is turned into the Buddhist way of viewing this is muck and lotus flower. And I'm real proud of myself. I've never done this before. I've never just consistently gone concept to concept to concept and thoroughly talked about each one and stayed on the point for the most part. Anyway, so the Buddhist way of saying this is you have muck, which is, it's dirt. It is suffering. It is akin to suffering. And so, but out of the muck, if you know how to use it, and if you know how to use it properly, you can use it as soil, as nutrition to grow lotus flowers. And lotus flowers are beautiful. You get muck on your clothes and no, I have to throw out the clothes now. But you see a lotus flower and you want to put it in your hair. And so that is what I see is one of the main points of human existence. It's to perform that process. It's to go from being a self to being a God inside of a body, or awareness inside of, I really love God. God, like, this is where I came from, and like this is my personal path is the path of the Bodhisattva through the lens of Jesus. First and foremost, from my perspective, I am a disciple. And so what that means for me is understanding that I am a fool. I am destined to fail. I'm a human. I'm a sinner. And I think the fact that we view ourselves as sinners, like first and foremost, like almost at this point subconsciously, I think that affects us in a very negative way. I had to thought about that earlier. Anyway, so, but I do see how it's true. I see where that perspective comes from, because I what is sin? Well, the term comes from missing the mark. And that's an archery term. And so if I've tried archery before, for my age, I was pretty good at it, but I was also a small child, and I haven't done it really since then. So, but I have that experience. And so I can try my hardest every time to hit the bullseye, but I know that I'm not going to unless I dedicate, fully practice. And so because of experiences like that, I had diving classes when I was young. The big kicker was marching band. It really taught me how, because at the time of marching band, I was a self. I was a person. I'm my own person. I'm separate from society. I am the smiley face in all the sad faces. And then I got into marching band, which is conform, be exactly like everyone else. And at first it was kind of offensive, but then I saw it. I saw what they were talking about, and the magnitude when you're playing with a whole drum line, and like that feeling and that higher consciousness that emerges. It was beautiful, and I loved it. And so, So I believe that is one of the purposes of human life. Why? Because it is the most enjoyable. It is when you are having the best experience. It is when you are working out all the time. It's when you are being healthy. And it's specifically when you are doing your equivalent to that. Because mine is being completely healthy, making myself a vessel for God. If God incarnated as a person that was not Jesus, but was a disciple of Jesus, how would he live his life? And for me, the answer is as a Buddhist. Just because because Buddhism, it's like this shell from the outside, because we see it and we project our thing. Buddhism's a religion. And no, you are the Buddha. This is why. This is how. This is the real nature of what's going on. Breathing in, I know I'm breathing in. Breathing out, I know I'm breathing out. Smile. Release. That is the essence of what's going on. That's what's happening. You're breathing right now in this moment. You are breathing. And so is the whole universe. And it's that process of where I see it as a relationship. I see it manifest in a relationship where there's two people. One is a person who is completely fine where they are at. And these two people are one person. They're two different sides of one person. I experience this personally. There's one person is completely content where I'm at, which is the Buddha. But then the human gets tired of this situation, and it's like, it becomes home, right? And you're born into a place, it is home. But then as you grow older, you're rebellious teenagers, you see all the flaws in your homes, and you want to go outside of the gate and garden. But then you're confronted, after a while, it's great because it's a hippie pipe dream, it's amazing, but then you're confronted with chaos, and you find out why the walls existed in the first place, because they're snakes. You find out, and then you build your own structure. And then as you build your own structure, it's informed by the structure you lived in. And then you have a greater appreciation for the series of events that led you to do that. But what it is, it's God expanding out. It's the same process where there are two people and they're different. One wants to be a robot. One wants to live in nature. Both are sides of me. They go out as far as possible, robot, nature, and then this self that is not robot and it's not nature, it's both, that emerges. And it's this property, it's this process, and I see it happen everywhere. I've actually described it. I'm working on writing it for my website and for my family. And because what it is, it's kind of the sum total of everything I've learned, which is basically, you have a thing, and that thing, some process led that thing to exist. But it exists. And outside of it is space. And space represents awareness, and the thing, or matter, represents body. And so at first, it emerges, and it only knows what it sees. But then at some point, like a deer, it's not focused on psychology. It is focused on the external world, obviously, because there are snakes. And so the deer, it goes, but at some point it becomes human. It becomes self-aware. And so at that point, you get this, and then it turns into this. And that space is space enough for an I to emerge, another thing to emerge, but that exists on a lower level of consciousness, or a lower level of beings, because what you figure out is that it's just plane after plane after plane after plane after plane of existence. And so what's really happening is there's a plane of existence, and then there's another plane of existence that comes into contact with that plane of existence. And that is why things simultaneously emerge, because as you study anything, there is no one, because if you have a North Pole and you have a South Pole and you cut off the South Pole, you just have a North Pole and then a re-emerging South Pole. Like things exist left and right. You cannot have one without the other. You either have the oneness of what is, or you have left and right. You don't have only left. Unless it's all only left, and then it doesn't matter that it's only left, and then it's all only right, and so it doesn't matter how you phrase it. This is how everything works, and it's the most beautiful thing. And one can be viewed as an observer or a consciousness, and one could be viewed as a physical plane, like a universe. And this. I'm working on it. It's hard to say naturally, but it's like essentially there is a conscious universe. Okay, I'm a Christian. I do not believe in 7-day creation. I believe that is a very strong metaphor, and I totally see it as like if God was like, yo, 7-day creation's real, I would be like, oh, fuck, sorry, bro. Anyway, sorry. I would be like, sorry, and I would immediately convert to 7-day creation. But I believe I am currently in a universe where it was created 3.8 billion years ago. It has developed over this long, and it was created by God. And it is God. It's the body of the mother. Which is an aspect of God. It's all beautiful. It's all interconnected. And so, anyway, there's the conscious universe where you are that. It is the internal universe. It's the space that is around all of the things. But the way it's like, imagine a plane, but it has a bunch of hills on it and stuff. And so it comes into contact with this complete blank slate. And so a picture emerges. That's kind of like how everything is. Because if you didn't see the hand behind all these and they just emerged out of a sheet of paper, you would see 5 things, and then slowly you would see, oh, it's a hand. And so it's that is how all things come to existence. Because without that interaction, there is no existence outside of themselves. There is just internal existence. There is just the one. And then when there is the two, it's because that there are 2 ones. And those 2 ones, the reason for human creation is for those 2 ones to see for a person to see how they are the product of a mother and a father. And the mother represents one set of concepts, and the father represents the other. And the child is the greater whole. And then it comes together with another grown-up child that is the greater whole of its own 2, and then they merge and they create a greater whole. And that is a way of viewing the purpose of human life. And it's beautiful. It is absolutely mind-blowingly beautiful. And I'm 19. That's the greatest part. If I can get it, you can get it. Like, for sure, absolutely, definitely. I'm a dropout that works in a warehouse. If I can get it, you can get it. What you realize is that it's all an illusion. What does that mean? It means the way you operate is an illusion. It doesn't mean the things that you operate. Like, let's say you have a fear response because you're scared of spiders, and you have a fear that this specific room has spiders, and so you don't go into the room. That is not, the fact that spiders exist is not an illusion. There are definitely spiders, and I know this specifically because I had to learn that lesson the hard way the other day when I was at the woods. It stretched over a long period of time. Sorry, phone needs to charge. I'm so silly. Basically, long story short, I didn't used to have a fear of spiders, and then I developed a fear of spiders. And so, as I was getting over this fear of spiders, a spider appeared right by my hand, and it scared the living shit out of me. And I screamed, and I ran into this archetypal moment where I was getting bit by the spider again, and I was like, no, back to the meditation. Om mani padme hum. Gate parasam gate bodhi swaha. Gate para parasam gate bodhi swaha. Gate para parasam gate bodhi swaha. Who the sun sets free, oh, is free indeed. I'm a child of God. Yes, I am. And that spider can say the same thing. I am God. The spider is God. There's nothing wrong with that incarnation. And then that is how I solved the problem. And sorry, I go into moments. It's a thing. I really like the thing. I don't know how it's viewed by people that are not like me. But then again, people that are not like me wouldn't make it this far in the video. And if you have, thank you. But yeah, what you can't. The fact that spiders exist is not. That's not an illusion. But the fact that if you go into that room, you were definitely going to get bit by a spider, which is your thought. That is an illusion, and so your fear response, it's valid. But in any situation where it is not valid, it is an illusion, and that's really hard to understand at first. But once you do it, you understand. That is the only way that I can put it at this moment. Anyway. And this is what I've really been beginning to appreciate. Just the silence. Because I'm going through the process. I needed to go through, because at one point I was a person. And so I needed to go through waking up. And what that originally meant was like rebelling against the system. And that led to whole things, and it's the whole thing that I described. The reason I believe in what I do is because of my personal experience, of course, that it's how people operate. Yeah, I had to wake up first out of the illusion, the government, and all that, and then I had to free my own mind, and I had to discover who I was, and so I had to go through this intellectual point of view, period of time, and I had to develop that mind, and I'm so happy that I did, because it's beautiful. I'm still working on it, and now it's time for the body, and then it's time for the soul, and then it's great. It is all perfectly him, and it doesn't really work it works how it works. It works out how it works out every time. I don't know how it does, it just does. And if you go against it, you know that you're going against it in such a way that what you're trying to do doesn't happen, something else happens. It's just how it works. It's beautiful, and it's the Tao. It's the reason why I am like I am is because I was a normal person. I literally have documentation. I can't wait. Someday, I'm gonna have enough. Well, I probably already have enough, but what I've determined is that it's the highest peak of where I was when I started, right? Because there's the rising and falling. At the highest peak of this, I realized that there was something about me that was special. It's the word that I would have used at the time, but I would have used it knowing that I wasn't special. And to this day, like it's like, I don't want to call it special because I know what that entails, and I know that that version of me wouldn't want me to call it special because it knows that it's not special. But there was something about me that wasn't everyone else that I would talk to, except for the fact that it was. But there was something, and so I started writing a journal, and that journal promptly it described the height of where I was, and then you watch the crash. And then out of that, you just watch this beautiful thing emerge. And it's like, and then I start to get it. And then, so I go through all these phases that I need to go through, and that's how it manifests for everybody. But, and so now I'm coming back to the space where I was originally, but from a whole new point of view. And I'm living that out until I get enough people to help me change the world. Because why not? Not change the world, but make it a better place. I don't know, like make average human experience better and not in a. I've talked about it extensively somewhere else, probably, definitely. Um, I want world peace. That's about it. I want to be. I'm an artist, and I want to be. Well, I am a person, and I've discovered that art can pour out of my hands, and it's beautiful, and it can. It just pours out of who I am, and it's absolutely beautiful, and I love it, and I want to be free to just be an artist forever. But then, as I lock myself to study and to draw for the rest of eternity inside of a room full of mirrors and clocks, which would be my ideal studio, um, I I realize that there's human suffering and that I can't do this without addressing that because I live on the same planet as they do and I have felt suffering myself, not to nearly as any. I have witnessed a lot more suffering than I have experienced, and the suffering that I have experienced has led me to how understand that suffering when you are experiencing it can become so overwhelming so fast that you cannot do anything about it. And because I understand that and that I am a separate person that is not in the suffering, my one of my purposes in life that I've defined to myself is to rid myself of myself so that I can be there for other people as themselves. Because I used to think that everyone was myself, and so I helped them how I would help me, which was a very profound moment and thing that I needed to realize for myself because I needed to figure out how to help myself. I needed to realize that I can't just let people walk on me all the time and expect that I'm not going to suffer and then it cause them to suffer as an effect of that. First I have to fill myself up with God. If you want to be a bodhisattva, first you have to get enlightened. And the where I would keep getting to the gateway and not going through because I needed to bring someone else with me. But I'm now realizing that what I was doing is I wasn't filling up my own cup. And that is a problem I feel like a lot of people down my path have. Because you have this compassionate, open heart. And when you're in the open hearted moments, you think that it's infinite. And so you take on an amount that, to a smaller point of view, is infinite. And then as you take on more and as you take on more, you slowly start to realize that you're kind of fucked and that you've taken on more than you should have. And then you're like, that's just an illusion. I'll do 120%. And then you've done 120% and you still need to go to 200 and you're burnt out. And when you're burnt out, you lash out at other people and it's not good. And you regret your decisions. But then you understand that there is no regret because everything happened for a reason. And it's absolutely beautiful. But yeah, what I'm coming to appreciate is the ever-present moment. I used to think of it as a series of trips. Rom, 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 rom. These aren't those. I'm so sorry. Is that an offense? In my mind, God understands what I mean, and so it's not an offense. But like Holy Mary Mother, I can't do the rosary yet. That's my next goal. That's why I wear it. Um, But yeah, I used to think of it as moment, 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 and I've begun to not see because I saw it a while ago. I'm getting a real appreciation for the non-moments, for the space in which they exist, and I say that, and it is going to be a really, really long time, I imagine, before I can really embrace that as true, to where this is my natural state of being, because you can already watch as I settle into it, thought emerges, or And that's natural, of course. I'm in a human body, and that's what meditation's for. And do the practice. I'm on the path. Trust the path. Trust the way. Trust your heart. Trust Jesus. I think that's a good stopping point. Thank you for coming along on this journey. This was a lot better than I expected it to be. So thank you. Have a good day. See, exactly. I can't. I can't end a video. I can't merge with God yet. I don't know how to. Anyway, because I want to leave you with something. I don't know why. It's like a courtesy thing, I guess. But I want to leave you with something that's worth your while, because most people are just like, "Bye, see you next time," and like that. That's fine, but and I don't want to stand out. Although that part of me, that is still a part of me. That's still a part of me as an I, and it's there. Like it didn't go away. It's part of who I am, and so when I'm not me, like when I can fully operate in a space of not me, which I've already achieved that to some extent, so give myself some credit, but obviously I'm not there. But this new guy that I was talking about, one of the things that he said, I literally just learned it today, and it's already changing my mind structure. At this point, it's happened so many times I can watch it. But all of it's God, even. And I think that is the thing, because the thing that Muji really taught me was to embrace the purpose of suffering, and that muck into Lotus, and then that got me into him, to Takna Khan, and then so now I'm getting into this guy. But that I feel like that's the transformation for this one. The transformation with Takna Khan was the breath, and so I think the transformation with this guy is that it's all God, even that. Even the because God, Guru, and self are one. And so when a self comes to the Guru and you are God, because God is just the observer of any situation, the observer is in the God perspective. And from that, he can act down in a perfect way because he's above the whole thing. He's the eye that floats above all of the things. Social dominance hierarchies. I'm really like a dog. I've noticed this. It's so strange, but it's like I get really like it's like there's a part of myself that is like a dog or like a cat when it brings a dead bird, something like that, where it's like there's a part of myself that definitely has that quality, and there's the other part of myself that it brings the bird to, and that like pats it on the head and it's like good job. And like that I don't know why, but it's like whenever my brain can bring me the exact place where I got this, and just have I don't know what closure I get from that, but I do get closure from it, and it's nice. It's all God. I used to say this and I didn't understand it, and I thought I understood it, and that means I don't understand it now, in relative to a greater understanding which I will one day have. But that's the level of understanding I'm at right now. It's all God. That's what I'll leave you with. It's all God.